I met Alex on the first day of kindergarten 24 years ago. He pulled up my dress on the playground, and I punched him in the nose. By the time our parents came to pick us up from the principal's office, it was too late. The damage was done, and we were already inseparable. There's a picture of us, Alex's arm around my shoulder, a little blood still staining the front of his shirt. I keep it beside my bed in a tacky picture frame, covered in hearts. It felt like a miracle when our cars followed each other nearly all the way home. I waved to Alex in front of his house, thrilled to know my new best friend only lived 2 streets away. We ran wild through our childhood, but we always ran together. In summer, shoes became a thing of the past, a convention we were sure our mothers forced on us, only to make us slow down and to rob us of the feeling of grass under our feet and the splash of creeks on hot days. We eventually agreed to wear shoes in the winter, after the time that Alex's toes turned so blue that his parents took him to the hospital to make sure it wasn't frostbite. Lesson learned. So rarely were we indoors that it baffled our parents when every day at 4 o'clock we made our way into Alex's house. It wasn't to sneak snacks or change out toys. It was the time that Alex's grandmother woke from her afternoon nap. If we took just the right steps, then she would tell us stories. And these were not the kind of stories our parents read to us at night. They were the kinds that get whispered on the school bus. Stuff of legends. Rarely with a happy ending. Some part of us knew the moment their grandfather clock was chiming 4, no matter how far away we were, we sprinted, knowing the water for the tea had to be boiling before his grandmother made it into the kitchen, that a tea bag should already be resting in her mug, always a powder blue one with tiny white flowers. A plate of cookies or sandwiches should be sitting on the middle of the table, though she wouldn't touch them and would insist that we ate them all. As for us, our hands should be washed, scrubbed completely clean, including under our nails. Our hair should be tidied, and we should be sitting at the table waiting for her. If all of these conditions were met, we always got a story. Always. She never seemed to care if we were wearing shoes, though. This went on for years. Alex and I were convinced that his grandmother knew every story that was ever told, and she kept them all in her head. We came up with dozens of reasons why she couldn't write them down, all of which were spoiled when we learned that she was writing them down. They were collected in a leather binder, each written in her perfect penmanship, learned in a time where that actually mattered. There was an offer made by one of us, I can't remember who, to type them, and it was immediately refused. There's some magic in ink and paper, she told us, nodding at the book and patting it fondly with one hand. When she died, the book was the only thing Alex asked for, but I'm getting ahead of myself. When we were 9, Grandma Aline told us the story of the echo. Sitting around the table, with dirt on our knees, but not a speck on our hands, we ate cookies while she sipped her tea and thrilled and terrified us in equal measure. Your Uncle Connor met an echo. She paused and considered Alex, searching his face. You look so much like him. Same nose, same cheeks, almost an echo yourself. I thought this was great news, to learn that there had been another Alex in the world, but Grandma Aline wasn't smiling. I don't know Uncle Connor. Alex and I had gone through the books of his family pictures many times, trying to find the people from Grandma Eileen's stories, sometimes finding them, sometimes not, and nearly always making up a story of our own. No, you wouldn't know, would you? People who meet an echo don't often live long enough to meet their nieces and nephews. There was something about the way she said the word echo that made it more of a name than a word. Our mother had warned us about echoes, so there was no reason things had to end so sadly. But Connor, he had a streak of wild in him that ran so deep our mother couldn't scrub it out no matter how hard she tried. Connor had to test things, prove them to himself. Our oldest brother told him that an echo lived in the well of the neighbor's farm, and right away, Connor began making plans to go see it. I came along because someone had to come. I nodded at that, understanding completely what she meant. Many times I'd follow Alex on a bad idea simply because someone had to follow. It was the way things were. When we got to the well, Connor started by dropping in a stone. It seemed to fall forever before it splashed into the water. We both listened, hearing the splash of water resound inside. Connor's face turned impish, convinced already of the echo from that simple sound. "Hello!" He called down, and the sound of his voice came back up to us in threes. "Hello, hello, hello." Grandma Eileen shivered and took a long sip of her tea as though it could warm her up. I put my hand over my mouth. Mother told us that we never must reply to an echo once we knew it was there. Starting a conversation is a dangerous thing, because once you've started, there's no one to know when it will end. I wasn't willing to risk making a sound that the echo could use against me, but Connor sneered. "Don't be a baby, Eileen. There's nothing down there but water and rocks. See?" He leaned over to the side, as though answer floated back up to him. "I see. I see. I see." I wanted to say something then, but my hand was still over my mouth. Connor's eyes grew large. Realizing his mistake, he put his hand over his own mouth and motioned for me to follow him as we ran home. Never in my life have I ran as fast as I did that day, chasing after him, plowing through the front door. We nearly knocked down our mother, wrapping around her legs as though we were much younger than we were. She wiped away tears, and when we had calmed down enough to speak, Connor opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Not from his mouth, at least. Instead, from the sink came words. "He's mine. He's mine. He's mine." Mother went pale. I never understood that expression until I saw the color drain from her face completely, until she was as white as the sheets she used to starch. She clapped her own hand over Connor's mouth. "Did you speak to it, Eileen?" She looked at me so fiercely that I still didn't dare to speak, and only shook my head instead of answering. She nodded once, and pulled my brother closer to her, staring into his eyes. "You fool of a boy! You've done it now!" If you couldn't see the tears in her eyes, you would have thought she was furious with him. My poor brother was trembling head to toe. There was nothing to be done for him, though. Everywhere we went, every time he opened his mouth to speak, he had no words. Answers would often come from other places, though, in a voice that sounded something like his. For 10 years, Connor lived that way. He rarely slept, the echo keeping him up all night. Many nights, it was so loud it kept the whole house awake, pressing pillows over our heads to try to muffle the slimy voice. He stopped having meals with us, hating how everyone winced each time he opened his mouth for food. The echo spoke instead. On his 18th birthday, Connor threw himself into the well. I was there because someone had to be. He hugged me and I kissed his cheek, but we didn't speak. Once the water splashed, a voice rose up, nearly singing, "Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye." I wiped the tears from my face and didn't say a word until I got home. Alex and I sat for a moment, chewing our cookies and thinking over the story. It wasn't the first one that ended grimly, and it wouldn't be the last, I was sure. Grandma Aline finished her tea, patted our heads as we still sat in silence, and went back into her room. In true 8-year-old fashion, Alex and I didn't discuss what we heard. We cleaned up the tea and the cookies and went back out to play. But we didn't answer echoes. We grew up as all kids do. And though we didn't miss our 4 o'clock dates with Grandma Aline, they stopped being stories and started being conversations. Those afternoons were still a treasure, one neither of us would have traded for the world. Eventually, after years of annoyance and insisting to everyone that a boy and a girl could just be friends, we realized that's not all we wanted to be. We started dating when we were 13, and we never stopped. One 4 o'clock time, Alex asked Grandma Aline if he could have her engagement ring. She scolded him for asking in front of me, but gave it over all the same. I still wear it. Grandma Aline died when we were away at college. Sometimes I think she would have held out if we had stayed closer. But Alex always told me it wasn't fair to torture myself with thoughts like that. I know that he was right. The book of stories came to live in our house. The book we didn't know existed. She dedicated it to us and to the children she thought we would have one day. On our honeymoon, we visited Italy. In front of a beautiful fountain, Alex declared he'd love me forever. Forever, forever, forever. The fountain echoed back his words, and it made him smile. That's right, he agreed, and we both knew in an instant the mistake he had made. Alex never spoke again. Still, we wanted a baby. It was miserable making love while that slimy version of his voice bounced off the walls around us. Alex held on long enough to see our child born, a sweet and perfect baby boy. We named him Connor. Whenever Connor would fall asleep, that voice would come loud and harsh and wake the baby, sending him into fits of tears that broke our hearts. It was Alex's choice to go, and I kissed him goodbye, and I held on to him so long that he had to pull himself out of my arms. He walked through the door, and I became a widow and a single mother at the age of 26. Connor is almost 3 years old now, and he's so smart. I tell him stories every day, the ones from the book. I'll make sure he believes them all. I'll make sure that he's smarter than we were. I'll make sure that he never answers an echo.
Thank you for watching. I always appreciate the support you show me, and I'm forever grateful for it. Hope everyone had a wonderful day. All my social media information is in the description box below. All the story, music, and image information is below as well. And don't forget, I'll see you.